Sega is responsible for some really great classic arcade games that also made their way onto the Atari 2600, such as Star Trek, Up and Down, and Congo Bongo. But they also released ports of two of their more obscure arcade titles on the 2600, Scan and Tac Scan. How do these two similarly titled games fare on the 2600? Let's find out in this edition of A Closer Look. Scan on the 2600 was actually called Deep Scan in the arcades. Why did they change the name? I don't know for sure, but perhaps they didn't want to confuse gamers into thinking Deep Scan was about an unpleasant medical procedure. The name change notwithstanding, the gameplay generally remains the same. You control a battleship on the top of the water, and your task is to destroy as many subs below the surface and achieve the highest score possible. The subs appear at different depths, and there's also a bonus sub that sometimes appears at the very bottom, which you can identify by its different color and a klaxon sound that it makes when it's on screen. You'll notice that there are two score tables on the top of the screen. The first is your actual score, and the one beneath is the bonus score that you'll receive if you hit the bonus sub. The bonus score increases for each regular sub you hit. There's also a radar at the bottom of the screen, but it's fairly useless beyond letting you know that there are subs entering the playfield. So how is the gameplay itself? In a word, boring! The game plays at an extremely slow pace, and the only challenge is in trying to time your shots accurately, which makes the game come down to a very slow carnival-style game, only in reverse, which makes you want to just play Carnival. What's the main problem? Well, take a look at the arcade version again. What do you notice that's present in this version that's missing in the 2600 version? It's obvious. In the arcade game, the enemy subs fire back at you. Yes, it's a very simple play mechanic that would have made the game 10 times more enjoyable. I'm not sure why they left this obvious feature out, but as it stands, the only way to lose the game is by missing 10 subs in a row, which will cause your ship to mysteriously explode. Something you may find yourself doing on purpose if you play this game very long. Come to think of it, that unpleasant medical procedure sounds like more fun at this point. Tac Scan came out in the arcade in 1982 and was originally a very impressive looking vector-based game that had you fighting aliens in both 2D and 3D perspectives and flying through 3D tunnels depending on the round you were in. It was unique in that instead of controlling one lone ship, you controlled a squadron of 7 ships, which all worked together for extra firepower. Kind of like having 2 ships in Galaga, only to a much larger degree. In the Atari 2600 version, you lose the vector graphics and any semblance of the 3D aspect from the arcade game, and you're reduced to just 5 ships instead of 7. The arcade game didn't use a joystick, but a rotary dial, and in the 2600 version, you use the paddle controls instead of a standard joystick. This gives you a nice degree of movement for your ships, but you're reduced to firing in just 3 directions, straight up and diagonally to the left and right, which reduces the effectiveness and purpose of having the precise control of paddle controllers. You would think having 5 ships would mean near invincibility, but you'll lose ships at a very impressive rate, especially in the later rounds. A round consists of 10 alien ships, and you gain 1 reserve ship for every completed round. And at the end of each round, these reserve ships can be used to replenish your fleet. You must guide the reserve ship onto one of the 5 available pads, which is not a difficult task with the paddles, but don't worry if you miss. The ship just goes into reserve. You can see how many reserve ships you have, because when you're docking, the score changes to show you your reserve ship count. Tac Scan is an interesting space shooter. It's not great, but it was fun enough to play for a while, and I enjoyed it enough to give it a recommendation. It's just a shame the paddle controls weren't used to a fuller degree when it comes to firing precise shots, but the paddles do their job adequately for moving your fleet of ships. Of the two games, Tac Scan is definitely better than Scan. Neither's a fantastic game, but with Tac Scan you'll get some decent gameplay value from it. With SubScan, you'll just fall asleep.